After doing more than 400 shows, Amy and I have made some huge mistakes. Today, I'm going to share 7 of them with you. The first mistake I want to share with you is don't eat messy foods at your booth. My best example of this is a comic book expo a number of years ago. I had a friend helping me with the booth and I asked him to pick me up lunch, but I forgot to tell them, don't get me anything messy or smelly. So they bought me the biggest hamburger they could find. It was fully loaded, the toppings were spilling out all over the place, and it came with a whole basket of fries as well. I started eating my lunch, and then a friend of mine from a different booth came over and said, hey, guess what? A celebrity just came to my booth, made a purchase, they're heading your direction. You'll know it's them because they have a dog with them. And I thought, I could probably eat a bit more of my lunch before they get here, as I want to kind of get it out of sight. But I was wrong. All of a sudden, the dog came running across the front of the booth. It had an LED collar and no leash, so I knew it had to be theirs. I quickly took my burger and I jammed it underneath the table on top of one of my bins. And I wiped my hand off on my tablecloth because I didn't have any napkins. I was standing on French fries, but I had everything else taken care of, so I looked up and came face to face with Carrie Fisher. That's right, the Princess Leia. And I didn't want her to know that I'd been having lunch. So I quickly started telling her about my work and asking her how she was enjoying the show. And in the end, she ended up buying a couple pieces from us, a book and a hair clip. But it was very embarrassing for us because her dog could smell the food. And so he was ramming the front of the booth, hitting the bins over and over, trying to get that burger. And her and her bodyguard were trying to figure out what was wrong with the dog. And I thought, geez, that's weird. I don't know. In the end, she left happy, but the lesson I learned from this was not to have messy or smelly food at my booth because I never know who's going to stop by, and you only get one chance to make a good first impression. So the second mistake I want to share with you is don't cheap out. When Amy and I first started, we went to the dollar store and bought plastic tablecloths. Not only did they look bad, and were always wrinkled, but when the lights got too close, they melted holes in them. It was like the whole universe was saying, go buy new tablecloths. And for a few dollars more, we could have saved ourselves a lot of hassle and embarrassment because they looked bad. You can see them in this picture here. In the end, instead of choosing the cheapest, we should have just paid a few dollars more and got something a little bit nicer, and it would have saved us all the hassle. The third mistake I want to share with you is check your list. First off, make your list, then check it, and check it as many times as you need to make sure you actually put everything into the boxes and all the boxes into the car. When Amy and I first started, we quickly adopted the idea of doing checklists. It was one of Amy's things, and it worked really well for us, usually, if we could find the checklist after we'd made it. Often we make the list, start checking it off, and in the chaos of show prep, we'd lose the list. Often we'd find it in one of the boxes when we got to where we were going, but it didn't do us a lot of good when we'd already forgotten to bring the lights, we'd forgotten the light poles, we'd forgotten products, and one time I actually forgot my suitcase. So I forgot all my clothes for the show. The only thing I had to wear the whole weekend was the same outfit, and it's essentially what I actually wear in the shop. So it wasn't a very nice outfit for the show. The show wasn't that good in the end anyways, so I couldn't really afford to just go and invest in a whole new outfit while I was there. It was an out-of-town show, so in the end, if I had not misplaced my checklist, I would have been well prepared for the show and wouldn't have had to gone through the embarrassment of wearing a really ratty outfit all weekend long trying to sell our work. This next one I'm going to call Caught in the Act of Setting Up. We once did a show that was an early morning load-in, and the person that was supposed to open the hall didn't show up on time. So that left all the vendors out in the parking lot. When the person finally showed up, we had to really hustle to get our displays and our products into the booth and then try to merchandise as fast as possible. It was total chaos, and it didn't work out very well for most of us. Many of the vendors were left with all the products and boxes in the aisle with customers going around it, and there was nothing we could do about it. This was a lot worse than just having a few tweaks left to do to your displays. But this taught me, always be on time, because you never know what's going to happen when you get into the show. This next mistake is one that I've made many times, and that's not getting enough sleep leading up to the show. The time that I wanted to share with you is a time where I had not had sleep for days leading up to the show or during the show either, because I was going home each night and working on new products to bring in the next day. We were just so far behind on what we wanted to have presented for the show. And by the time I got to the third day of the show, I was feeling really exhausted. And at one point, I stood up to grab my coffee and I lost my vision. Everything just went completely white. I could hear, but I couldn't see anything at all. And I was worried that I was going to collapse forward onto my glass case or backwards onto my pegboard. Either way, it could have been a catastrophe and I could have got really hurt. So this taught me a very significant lesson, was to make sure that I had enough, like a minimal amount of sleep each day of the show to avoid anything like this happening again. The sixth mistake I want to share with you is not researching the show well enough before applying. In this case, what happened was we signed up for a show based on what we thought was a great idea. It was a comic book themed show, which we usually love doing. It seemed like it was in a nice location, which it was, but the promoter didn't promote it at all. So basically no one came, as you can see from this picture. Now that guy is really bored, but not as bored as me. I was so bored, I took his picture to send to my wife, Amy, so that she knew just how bored I was and how there was no one at the show. And you'll notice beside him, there's an empty table. That guy was so bored, he packed up in the middle of the day and just took off with his boxes of comic books, etc. So what that taught us was to make sure we always researched, no matter what kind of show it was, no matter how much fun or how cool it sounded, and we had to make sure that they were actually going to bring customers in and they were actually promoting the show. And the seventh mistake I want to share with you, and I admit this one sounds ridiculous, is your name on the list. In this case, we had signed up for a show, paid for the show, showed up on time, only to find out that the promoter had forgotten to write us down on the final list, so she didn't have a space for the booth. It was an outdoor show, so I had brought my tent with me, but outdoors meant that it was inside a big compound with a huge cement wall that was about 20 feet tall. Literally, you had to be inside to see what was going on. She said, the only place I can put you is on the outside of the wall beside the parking lot and the coffee shop. And I thought, well, I've come all this way, I'm on time, I have everything prepared, why don't I just set up anyways? There's nothing to lose other than some time, but it's a beautiful day. I set up, and as you can see from the picture, I spent a long time on the setup, and I had an unexpected turnout for the show, and that was all the bicyclers heading to a bicycle rally nearby happened to want to go to the coffee shop first. So as they were on their way to the coffee shop, they stopped at my booth. And it turned out that our products really appealed to them. Many of them bought from me, and I had a great day. When I went back to tell the promoter, geez, this actually worked out. Thank you so much for having us. She said, oh my goodness, I'm so glad to hear that. But actually no one came into the show, so you were very lucky. And I thought, oh wow, that was a strange situation. But what it really taught me was to make sure that I got a confirmation email, or if I didn't receive the confirmation email, to email or call them and make sure that I was actually confirmed for the show, because just because I had paid didn't mean they had remembered to include me on the final list. Now that I've shared some of our mistakes with you, I look forward to reading some of yours in the comments below. Thanks for watching. I hope to see you next time, and please subscribe.